Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. We are playing Stardew Valley. And we're playing it in ultra wide, which looks fantastic, really. It's just beautiful. So this was, I was on a trip this week in Indianapolis, Indiana. Gen Con 2019. It was our 4th year going. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Let me get the important stuff out of the way first. So, this week on the Exploring series, we finished off the Ouroboros cycle. Much fanfare. View-wise, I suppose it did fine. Can't complain. Reaction, though, to the content was polarized. As I expected it would be. It is a very... Yeah, again, it's just sort of the thing that people come to the SCP universe for different reasons. And the SCP universe encompasses a lot of genres, a lot of themes, a lot of concepts. Some people, I mean, nothing pleases everybody. And when you're talking about a big story like that, you're going to please and displease a lot more people. So for those that just like SCP is straight up horror, all the over-the-top action and Deus Ex Machina and sort of fantastical elements are going to be very underappreciated. But those people that come to the SCP for a lot of lighthearted elements and comedic stuff and things like that, the Ouroboros cycle doesn't really contain almost anything. And so, at the end of the day, I mean, I generally prefer SCP to be just horror, but this was a story using the SCP universe as a backplate, as a foundation. And as a story, I think it was really just interesting. I mean, I'm not the type of person that gets really caught up on, like, canon and, oh, this does not fit my image of the SCP universe and how things would operate and exist. It's like, it's like a comic book, man. It's just a fucking story. That's just me. So I enjoyed it. But at the same time, I'm also glad that it's done. And done it is. I'll be releasing the full, like, 3.5 hour, all parts combined video probably on Thursday, I would say. And tomorrow is going to be another Lord Blackwood tale as he hunts down Bigfoot. It's a shorter tale. It's only about 20 minutes long or so. But it's just something I cranked out before I left for Gen Con. And now we can get back to normally scheduled SCP stuff. Just traditional, normal articles again. So that's good. I guess that's that. I do want to do... Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have a Warhammer 40k video coming out this week, but... I'm not gonna... I'm not gonna start cramming it right now. So... This week on this channel, we had Wolfenstein Youngblood and Final Fantasy Tactics A2. The final part of Wolfenstein Youngblood is releasing tonight. Then it's done. It was a very short game. Shorter than I thought it would be. I mean, I know it was half price, but still. Damn. Now, that... I didn't show many of the side quests, so that does affect it. But what it does mean is, obviously, it's not going to last us throughout August until Control comes out on August 27th. So, I need a game to LP between now and the 27th. And I think what it's probably going to be is... If I were to say right now, probably that Bloodstained game. That's sort of the Castlevania inspired game. If I see something else that tempts me, so be it, but that's what I'm saying right now. As for Final Fantasy Tactics A2, we had a bit of an audio problem. I still have no idea. Last night, when I got back from Gen Con, I rendered the videos 2 more times. They still had audio problems. Could not figure it out. So I just uploaded the original files that I recorded that didn't have any problems. But I'm actually caught up now on Final Fantasy Tactics A2. I have not recorded it in a while. So I have to start recording that again. So I don't know how long that LP is going to be. Once that is done, we're done with Final Fantasy. As far as I mean, I'm not planning on doing anything else until the next Final Fantasy game. So probably switch over to Metroid Prime whenever that happens. And I think that's what the schedule is for now. You know, the month of August now, it's really just buckling down to get ready to move. So I'm going to be doing a lot of packing and cleaning around here and ordering all sorts of stuff, the condo, getting everything situated. But then come September is going to be all the moving in process. I don't know how that's all going to go. So it's an exciting time, I suppose. Okay, moving on then. We didn't have roll manging this last week. What the fuck was that sound? That was weird. It was like, what the... the Google Assistant just shouted cool at me. What the hell? So we didn't have roll manging this last week. We do not have roll manging this coming week, as we always take a break after Gen Con. So RPGs are on a slight hiatus. But we did do Gen Con. We knew going in that this would be our last year at Gen Con. Possibly ever. I mean, who knows? But at least for a good number of years. This will be our This was our final year at Gen Con. And this was also a little bit different of a year because Ziggy brought his wife along for the first time. And Phil brought a couple of friends along that we didn't know. And it was their first year at Gen Con. So, all told, our group was 8 people large. But it was not really a unified group. Phil and his 2 friends sort of did their own things for the whole convention. And Ziggy and his wife sort of stuck together and did their own things for... Now, what the fuck? What is with these parsnips? What the fuck? They sort of did their own thing. For the convention. So, for the most part, it was like 3 of us. It was me, Thomas, and Studs. Just hanging out. I mean... So it was a 3-man Gen Con, which was unusual. And not great. I mean, it's better than a 2-person Gen Con, better than a 1-person Gen Con, but not what we've really come to expect. This sound is way too loud, right? I don't think I'm talking too loud, so. So we left Wednesday at like noon, and we didn't get into Indianapolis until like 7 p.m. The traffic, it just took forever, it felt. And our hotel was the farthest away that it's ever been from the convention center, so that wasn't great. And so the first night, really, we went out to dinner at our favorite local place in Indy, which was good. Good food, good drinks, good giant Long Island iced teas. And then the plan was to go back to the hotel and do some gaming. You know, the night before. But we all basically ate and drank so much, we got back to the hotel and we all died. So, that was Wednesday. It was driving there, eating and drinking a bunch, and then just collapsing. But the problem was, the alcohol sort of sedated me for a few hours. But then my body was like, what the fuck are we doing? This isn't your normal bed, you piece of shit. So I got up at 2:30. Desperately tried to go back to sleep for the next 3 hours. Realized it wasn't going to happen. I made myself some tea. And then I watched, like, The King of Queens and SpongeBob, until it was time to get up. So, I'd say it was a really rough first night, but honestly, that's pretty par for the course for first night at Gen Con. So that Thursday morning, we tried the hotel's complimentary breakfast, which not many of us were really happy with, but okay, whatever. Get to the convention center, park like a 15-minute walk away. Walk through the morning heat. And the three of us didn't really have anything in mind to rush in and buy. So for that opening rush into the vendor hall, the three of us just went up on like the walkways above the main floor, and so there you can look down at like this sea of nerds just waiting, and so it's a pretty cool view. You just see this throng of people desperately waiting, and then this big rush into the vendor hall. So that was fine. Then we went into the vendor hall ourselves. We wandered around. It's really just shit. It's so fucking crowded in there. And you're just getting like tossed about. It gets so warm so quickly. And the smells and the sights and the sounds, and it's just, there's nothing good going on. That Thursday morning rush is just, oh god. Give someone a gift. Okay. Who am I hitting on? Haley? She just wants a sunflower. Surely I can find a sunflower. Emily's pretty cool. A survival burger. That doesn't sound yummy. So like I said, we weren't really looking for anything specifically. I was not planning on buying anything. I did tell you that impulse buys were the lifeblood of Gen Con. But we were just sort of wandering around. I mean, we didn't really bring many games with us, so obviously something had to be purchased. The one game that I had sort of looked at, I pulled up the list while we were driving of like the most anticipated games at Gen Con. The one that caught my eye was a game called Cloudspire, which was it was a Kickstarter game, I believe, but it was available for purchase at Gen Con. And I didn't really know, I didn't read anything about it. I was just like, oh, this looks pleasant. I just like the look of it, really. And so we wandered over to the Cloudspire booth, where I learned that the game cost $130. And so I decided, fuck that, because I had already spent like $350 on Bloodborne. But Stud started looking into it, and he decided he liked the look of it, so he went back and purchased it. So, okay, one of us has Cloudspire. Thomas bought some other game, Teotihuacan or something like that. But we never got around to playing that. So Cloudspire ended up being like the one game that we played for all of Gen Con, because it wasn't like it was. It would have been better with 4 players, but it was a decent 3-player game, and that was important. It's sort of like a tower defense slash MOBA kind of game. It's pretty unique. Everyone has their own fortress, and you go through multiple waves or rounds, really. And during each wave, you're like upgrading your fortress, you're putting out units, you have heroes, and you're also you can also build these towers at specific points on the map. And these towers are like stationary things that fire automatically on any enemy units that approach them. So that's sort of the tower defense thing. And you have minions that are forced to continually move towards an enemy fortress every turn. So you don't really have too much control over them. But then you also have specific hero units you can put out there that have free reign to move and go anywhere that you want. And so it's sort of balancing out what are the best minions to put out there that I'm not going to have that much control over, but that sort of counter the enemy minions and towers and stuff like that. And then you also have the heroes, who are very valuable, because if they die, they're gone. But they can also be really useful and powerful. And so the goal of the game is basically to destroy other people's fortresses. But it's really tricky because there's going to be towers built up to defend, and they're going to have other minions coming out. It ended up being a really interesting game. I'm glad that I didn't purchase it, because my thought about purchasing it was that it has a bunch of cooperative scenarios. It has a booklet full of cooperative scenarios that are 2-player. And I was like, oh, I could do that with my mom. That would be fun. But the game is far too complicated for that. It's really like a dense game. Cool. Good for our group at Gen Con, but that's about it. Also, it was $130. So, there's that. Inventory full my ass. I really have to build a chest or something. Damn it. Just throw that on the ground. But yeah, it was a cool game. Bottom line, check it out, Cloudspire. And the bottom line was, it was important that the 3 of us had a good hardcore board game that we could spend the whole weekend playing together, and that's what we found. So in the end, it was good that he bought it. So Thursday, yeah, we did food trucks for lunch. I used to really like the food trucks. Nowadays, there's just too many fucking people at Gen Con. That's really the bottom line that pisses me off about everything. There's just too many people. So the lines for the food trucks from like 11 to 2 are insane. Because there's not that many food trucks out there at any time. And everyone goes to the food trucks. So you just have massive lines for every truck. And it's hot out. Because this is like high noon Indianapolis in the summer. And so you're just scorching out there in these lines. And I feel like the food trucks know that there's like the only option. Because nobody's buying the convention center food. So their portions are small and the prices are high. And it's just really, ugh. But still, it's better than the convention food. So this is what you do. Anyways, so I got like some noodles. It was like noodles with chicken and a bunch of veggies. And I ate it with chopsticks because I'm trying to practice chopsticks for when I go to Japan. I think I did an alright job. So I'm eating my fucking noodles in the convention center in like our usual gaming area. And some guy like walks up in front of me and he like tries to like surreptitiously with his phone take a picture. And from the way that his phone was angled, it seemed like he was taking a picture of my noodles. And I noticed it, and I just like I stop eating, and I just like stare at him. And he just like continues holding his phone there and then walks off. And it's like, what just happened? Why would people do this? I don't know. And I was too stunned to say anything. But that happened. There was no denying it. He took a picture. Or he was taking video or something. I don't know. I really don't think I was in the picture. I'm pretty sure it was just my box of noodles. Maybe he was like showing it to somebody else and be like, hey, look, there's these noodles somewhere. Let me take a picture of this guy's noodles. I don't know. I don't know. So we had 2 events on Thursday. One was a Codenames tournament. And one was an escape room. So at least one of them was a board game. The Codenames tournament, we found out at the actual tournament itself, was a duos tournament. So it was basically groups of 4 with 2-person teams facing off. So I went with Thomas. Ziggy went with his wife. And we did our first games. The thing with most tournaments that we've found at Gen Con, they're really like sort of slapdash productions. Like they're so... It's not like some poker world championship or some shit like that. It's really like, it's like one guy from the company, you know, you find out the rules for the tournament at the tournament. It's just thrown together very informally. No one is really like observing you during the game itself. It's meant to be really like self-policing. And the prize is usually not something incredible. It's almost always just like other board games from the same company that made the game you're playing. But you know, I had gotten second place in the coup tournament a couple years ago, even though I'm not that great at coup, and I was running on like an hour of sleep. So I was like, oh well, maybe we can win the Codenames tournament. Thomas and I are usually pretty decent, but we lost the first game, and Ziggy and his wife lost their first game. So the tournament for us ended very quickly. God damn it. Well, now I can afford it. I mean, at least for Thomas and I, the game was really close. It ended up coming down to like one card. I mean, it was a one card difference. Basically, the crux of our failure was me using the clue wood to try and get like, I think it was maybe like file. It was the word file and palm. And I would have done like hand, because you file your nails and your palm is in your hand, blah, blah, blah. But one of the other team's words was thumb, and I knew it would just go for it. And the other team, you know, also wanted to do like a hand clue for thumb, but we had palm, and it just wouldn't have, yeah. So I went with wood because a file is made from paper, which is made from wood, and palm like a palm tree. It was a stretch, but I'm not very good at code names. I think he got file, but he didn't get palm. He never thought of a palm tree. So that's pretty much why we lost. Ziggy and his wife primarily lost from the sounds of it. I mean, I didn't observe their game. But the other team for them used the clue 9/11, which in no way should be allowed as a clue in Codename. That was like the one rule of the tournament that was pretty clear. The rule was it has to be one word only. No hyphens, you know, no slashes, no, just one word. That's it. I don't know under any situation where 9/11 would be one word. But Ziggy and his wife didn't challenge it, and so that's how it went. The prize, I think even if you made it to the quarterfinals, you got like some sort of board game prize, which is pretty good. The final winning prize was like a slew of Czech board game, like Czech games, board games. Which would have been nice, but oh well. So then we went to dinner again, same place. A lot more food, a lot more alcohol. And my performance during the following escape room, because the escape room was like across the street from the restaurant, so we just waddled over there. And so I blame my lack of performance in that escape room on the cheese sauce at the restaurant. They had never offered me cheese sauce with my fries before, but I thought, you know, when in Gen Con, get the cheese sauce. So I was basically just destroyed afterwards from the combination of all the things. And the escape room was like we were American agents that were at the KGB headquarters, and we needed to find some like mind controlling chemical and get out of there before we were tortured or something. But it was kind of weird because we started out handcuffed and we had to break out. That was the start of my problems. I was not prepared to be handcuffed. And not only were we handcuffed, we were all handcuffed like together. So you had to move together. And I was like, I just want to sit in this fucking corner and digest and watch everyone else escape from this room. That was not an option. I had to be like dragged around, and oh god, it was rough. It was so rough. Eventually I got out of the handcuffs, which was amazing. And from then on, I did exactly what I wanted to. I just sat in the corner and watched. And occasionally made comments. This is probably what I would have normally done anyways. I'm not, I get, this is like my 6th escape room maybe. It's not like I'm stupid. I mean, not completely. But you get into escape room, especially with strangers. The problem is really like accelerated with strangers involved. I get in an escape room and people immediately start rushing around. Like everybody, like drawers are being thrown open, clues are being shouted out, and everyone is just immediately like starting to attack problems because there's that time limit. And I'm never like fast to do anything. I like to be very deliberate in life. So I never feel that drive at the initial moment to like jump in. And so everyone else is rushing around and taking charge of all these things, and I'm just sort of stuck in the middle in this whirlwind of action. And so then it can be difficult to sort of insert yourself into someone's problem. You know, 2 people are working on this number problem in one corner of the escape room. And I'm supposed to just suddenly insert myself and be like, hey, what are you doing here? Maybe my big brain can solve what your stupid little brain can't. It's just like, if you're the first person to find a problem, you are in control of it until you give up and pass it off or something like that. So at the start, if you don't find something to do right away, you can be overwhelmed. And then you just stand there while everyone else continues. And so that's normally how I feel about escape rooms. But I do enjoy escape rooms because I like watching the spectacle. I have no problem just watching everybody solve and just sort of being in the room and just sort of being immersed in the whole spectacle of it. So it was fine. We failed miserably. Like, it was probably the worst performance I've ever seen in an escape room. Like, they spent like 20 minutes on one problem trying to get this box open with this like numbered code, and they couldn't do, like, we used all of our hints to talk to the guy to try and get us this box open, and they still had no clue. And I was just like, just have him come in here and open it for us at this point. So it was atrocious. And I think at this point, I would probably never choose to do an escape room with strangers. I mean, I know strangers are just friends waiting to happen or something like that, but escape rooms are just far more pleasant and comfortable and enjoyable if it's all people you know. Because if it's, if it's your buddy, you don't have a problem like screaming at him and calling him a dumbass and things like that. If it's some strange older woman, it's a little harder to do that. And communication tends to break down, especially if it's like 3 different groups of strangers coming together. Because then you basically have 3 separate groups, and occasionally they'll converse with one another if they have to. But generally they just sort of stick to their little groups. If you're all one big group of friends or family or whatever, communication's far better. Did I water? Yeah. It was fine. The others, like Studs, that was more actively involved in solving the escape room, was not happy with it, and that's understandable. I was just glad to be out and walking outside again. Still trying to digest. Then I think we went back to the hotel. It's like 11 o'clock or something. And they were like, oh, you want to play some Cloud Spire? Because we were still learning how to play. We're still learning the rules. And I thought that they just wanted to like do a couple rounds and just figure out how to play. But they intended to play a full game, which at this point was like a 5-hour affair. So I started, and Ziggy joined us. Ziggy left at like 1:30. When we were... I don't even know if we were halfway through the game at that point. I realized at like 2:30 that they were planning to play a full game. And that was a no-go for me, because remember, I was running on very little sleep. I'm not going to do that 2 nights in a row. So I left at 3 a.m. They still had another full wave to go. It was clear that I was not going to win the game. I was not in a good place, but I just did not. No, I was just done. I wanted to get some sleep. They actually did end up finishing the whole game. They ended at like 4 a.m. That's sort of a ideological difference with vacations, I guess. My sister, whenever she goes on a vacation, she's always like, she always thinks like, you can sleep when you get home. If you're on a trip, you're trying to do as much as physically possible during your trip. You know, run yourself ragged so you can just experience and do as many things as possible. And so then when you get back, you can just crash and sleep and blah, blah, blah. I feel that sort of defeats the purpose of vacation, which is meant to just like clear your body, clear your mind, and relax. So that you can return back to your normal life, your normal work life, refreshed and not in need of another vacation when you get back. That's sort of our difference. And so at like 2:30, when I told them that I was going to be leaving, and at 3, they were like, wouldn't you rather stay up and do what we came to Gen Con to do, to play games, rather than like get up in the morning? And in a lot of situations, I would say, yeah, of course, yeah. But I knew that we would not sleep in the morning, because we never do at Gen Con. It just never happens. I knew that we were going to get up at like 9 a.m. or some shit. 8 a.m. And that was just the start of the next day. I mean, sure, we had all agreed, let's sleep until noon and just game the night. That's great, but that's not what was going to happen. And I'll be damned if I was going to get 2 hours of sleep. 2 nights in a row. So anyways, moving on. What fucking day was it? Friday. Friday, we had decided we had no interest in the hotel breakfast, so we went to Taco Bell for breakfast, which was actually really good. I mean, Taco Bell breakfast is generally decent, but they took their time and dedication to make our breakfast that day. It was delicious. We headed to the convention center, and we pretty much just posted up immediately and started playing Cloudspire again. And I had bought a ticket to go to Dice Tower Live again. When I bought the ticket, I was like, I mean, I had nothing else to do that Friday. I had nothing else to do. I might as well just go and see Dice Tower Live instead of playing a board game. But when it came down to it, we were still in the middle of Cloudspire again. When Dice Tower Live was going to be coming up. And so it was like, I would have to back out of another game of Cloudspire. It was less about me like really enjoying Cloudspire and more about just ditching these guys again in the middle of a game just to go see Dice Tower Live, which I wasn't crazy about seeing either. I've actually unsubscribed from the Dice Tower. Because I just don't pay that much attention to board games anymore, and they just put out so many fucking videos every day that just fill up my subscription feed. So I've definitely distanced myself from the Dice Tower. I didn't even talk to Tom Vassal this year. Because the past few years, I've told him, like, that he and his channel were sort of an inspiration for me to just keep putting out videos every week, and just keep climbing up the ranks so I could one day surpass their channel as far as, like, size. But now that I've actually done that, and I just, like, stormed past their channel, I couldn't think of a way to, like, tell him that without coming off like a real asshole. So ultimately I decided just not to talk to him. So I passed on Dice Tower Live. It probably was gonna be even worse than last year. Or at least I'll tell myself. We finished the game Cloudspire. I don't know what else we did. I think we just went, like, to dinner again. So another night at the same place. More greasy pub food, more alcohol. And then Friday night, a group of us, the three of us and Ziggy, had a RPG one-shot. A Call of Cthulhu Dark Ages one-shot set in Ireland. And it was being run by, like, a Chaosium authorized DM. And I guess we were optimistic. I've had a lot of trouble with, like, random DMs online. So I was a little concerned. And originally the idea was that we were going to restrain ourselves at dinner so that we were a bit more sober during the session. It didn't really work out that way. The three of us, excluding Ziggy, ended up drinking a fair amount. So none of us really showed up sober, I would say. And we get to the session. I see the DM sitting there. I immediately go off to the bathroom. I come back, and they tell me that, oh, this, the DM, he follows the Exploring series. And I'm like, shit. It's not what I want to hear. At a one shot where I'm not entirely sober. And so he's like, yeah, they were telling me about their friend that makes videos. And I was like, that sounds a lot like this guy I follow on YouTube who's making SCP videos now. And I'm just like, well, it's always good to meet a fan. What else do you say? And so it turns out he's from Wisconsin. He's from right near here. Like, he certainly lives pretty close to all of us. And, he's a big nerd. Ziggy was chatting with him about all sorts of books and stuff. And he went to UW Milwaukee. And, obviously he's big into RPGs. And so we were like, before the session, we were like, we had said, wouldn't it be great if this guy lived in Wisconsin? He was like a great DM and he could just DM our group. Wouldn't that be great? And so we were shocked then to find out he did live in Wisconsin. We were like, oh, this could be really good. But it turns out the session was pretty terrible. Now, that's not necessarily his fault. I'll say that. But it doesn't give a great impression either. This was an organized, official Chaosium session, one-shot event. So it was a pre-written scenario. But it was, I guess it was written for Gen Con. Like, you couldn't, Google it and find it, I don't think. So it was recently constructed. And so as far as organized RPG events are concerned, I'm reminded of Spoonie's Counter Monkey video where he DM'd for the RPGA and he changed one little thing and he got banned for life. According to him, at least. And so that sort of makes me think maybe they are really strict about running these sessions, running these stories, making sure that everyone involved has sort of an equally enjoyable time and nothing goes crazy off the rails and blah, blah, blah. Because this session was certainly not off the rails. Far from it. In fact, we had said afterwards that really there were not any meaningful decisions made by our part whatsoever. Overall, it was a very narrative-focused session. It took place in Ireland during the Dark Ages or whatever. We were a family of Irish living in this village, and we were all descendants of the great Celtic king Brian Boru, who had died in a battle 10 years ago. And after his death, this other clan sort of took over our village, and our family name lost a lot of power. So we were basically like the dredges of that society now. All fine so far. I mean, that was a fine setup. The local druid, who was a friend of our family, told us that he knows of a way to bring Brian Boru back. But what he needed in order to do so was a legendary sword known as Excalibur. Because he needs to present this sword to one of the Shi, one of the, the fairies, the Tuatha-Dé Danann, and they would guide him to bring back Brian Boru. But the problem is, this druid has no idea where Excalibur is located, and that's why he has gathered us. Because we would have to go out into the wilderness, into the wild of Ireland, and track down this sword. And we would have to say goodbye to our family. Because we might not return for a long time. And so at that point, I was like, all right, this sounds pretty good. We've got, like, he gave us, like, a map of Ireland and stuff with all these different places dotted on it. Like Dublin and Tara and, these different legendary cities and regions and stuff. And I was like, all right, we're going to be on this nice adventure. We're going to have to figure out some clues about where this sword would be located. And, we'll have to deal with some problems. And this is going to be good. That's where everything went downhill. Because he said at that point we took a break. We took a bathroom break. And during the bathroom break, he replaced all of our character sheets with similar character sheets, but our characters were now 40 years older. "40 years had passed by. A 40-year time skip. That's like unheard of. 40-year time skip. And during those 40 years, each of our characters went on an individual journey across Ireland. And during those individual journeys, each of us accomplished exactly jack shit. Like, none of us accomplished anything whatsoever. We just got older and, like, less capable than we used to be. And when those 40 years were up, we all happened, coincidentally, to arrive back in our original village together on the same day, along with the druid who had sent us out into the world. And then, the DM had us go around the table and sort of explain, like, what we were doing on our journey. And, like, what kept us going and what kept us motivated and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't fucking know. You sent me on this journey. I didn't choose to go. I hate that shit. And so it's at this point, that I'm really like, okay, no meaningful decisions whatsoever are being made on our part. Like, he's basically just reading us a story. We have done nothing by this point. This is an hour and a half into the session. So we get back to the village together. And the druid tells us that he has found Excalibur himself. Like, he didn't need any of us to go around the world for 40 years, abandoning our families in the process. He found it because some she, like, gave it to him. Fantastic. He might not have told us at that point. I think he told us like he had one last thing to do or something like that, and he would meet us in 2 months' time. And then I think when we meet him again in 2 months' time, he has the sword. But either way, it's the same thing. We did nothing to find this sword whatsoever. So he tells us like in 2 months' time, he will meet us again at like Stonehenge, at like the standing stones outside of the town or something, on the day before the midsummer solstice. In the meantime, though, we have to live in the village that we've abandoned, and no one there likes us. Almost like practically no one there likes us. And then it comes out that a bunch of the members of our extended family wish to legally cut their familial ties with us because we are like the scum of the earth, and they want to join this other clan, and they don't want any part of us. So then we have to go through court in order to like argue against having our familial ties cut, because the DM tells us that this is a fate worse than death, and none of your characters would ever want this. So they will argue to try and, you know, prevent this from happening. It's like, dude, let me play my fucking character, man. You know? Like, character agency is such a crucial part of an RPG. And this guy would just continually, like, tell us what we should think and what we are doing. And so really, it's like he's just telling us a story. I'm not playing a character at all. He's playing all of our characters. And again, I don't want to be too critical on him specifically. Like, any DM sanctioned by Chaosium might have been told to do this. I have no idea if he is a good or bad DM, because this was not a representation one way or another. It's hard to say. Unless we ran it with another DM, that would be the only way we could figure it out. So we had to go through court and argue that our family members should like us. And instead of like having to come up with arguments ourselves that might sway or in one way or another, he's just like, okay, you could use one of these 5 skills and you have to roll 3 times and we see who does better. And so it's just like, okay, let's take all the role playing out of this. That's good. I mean, at that point, I was fine with it, because it's like, I don't want to come up with arguments, because my character probably doesn't even care. But he's telling me that I have to care. So I'm just like, okay, I'm going to use Persuade. We rolled 3 times, and I think I ended up like with a tie. So my retrial was in 2 months' time. That was the other funny thing. Like, Studs completely failed. He completely fucked up. And so the DM's like, okay, you are going to be exiled from the town. You have to change your last name. Like, you are scum. You are nothing. That you have lost like the Lord's protection and blah, blah, blah. But you can stay in the village for 1 week. And then he like immediately corrects himself. And he's like, I mean, 2 months. You have to leave the village the day after the midsummer solstice. It's like, wow, how convenient. Let's introduce, no conflict whatsoever into this character's life. Because the day before that, we're going to bring back Brian Boru, who's going to reclaim Ireland and return us to glory. So, okay, sure. So it's like, okay, success or failure doesn't mean jack shit. I think someone else also failed, but it was like the same thing. It didn't matter. Well, I mean, my retrial was the day after the summer solstice as well, so it didn't matter. Okay, so 2 months go by, nothing happens whatsoever. We meet up with the druid again. He shows us the sword, he shows us Excalibur. And then like a she appears, a fairy appears and takes us through the standing stones into Tir na Nog, into like the fairy realm. So we go into the fairy realm, and It's all very magical and mystical. And then we find Brian Boru. But we find that he's like a Frankenstein creature now. Like half of his body is still all good, but he sort of got wrecked in that battle. So parts of him were missing, and they've been basically like gluing other human body parts onto him to try and restore him to, you know, the normal form. The problem is, as it turns out, they need body parts from people that share his lineage, which is, of course, us. And so the DM's like, you know, this is like, this is your goal. This is you can restore Brian Boru. What are you willing to give him? And so we all had to go all around and like offer up body parts. It's like, okay, I mean, this is what we want. And so we offer up body parts, and we get taken to like these machines that like extract body parts from us. And we have to make like Constitution saving throws. So I offered up like one of my eyes. I had my eye removed. I rolled a Constitution roll. I failed. And he's like, "You're dead." I'm like, okay, I'm dead. We don't do anything meaningful for like 2.5 hours. I fail one roll and I'm dead. Brilliant. So they go around, they stitch together Brian Boru with some of our parts, but it's still not enough. So they have to go around a second time. I think we had one other guy. He was a much older guy. He was a stranger. We didn't know him. He was also part of the session. He was pretty quiet for the most part, but he seemed like a good-natured dude. He also ended up dying from the second procedure. But yeah, they had taken more parts, and Brian Boru was restored, and he returned to Ireland. He reclaimed Ireland, and our clan was brought back to great name and wealth and power, and that's how it ended. And it's like, what the fuck did we just play? What was the point of any of this? It's because it's like, why would we have... You might say, like, well, maybe you could have argued. Maybe you could have done different things. Maybe you could have gone on a rampage and blah, blah, blah. But we had decided afterwards that it probably would not have changed anything. Like, if we had stormed the guy's village and tried to retake it ourselves, the DM probably would have just said, like, okay, you get overwhelmed, you get knocked out, and you're sent on a journey for 40 years. At one point, Ziggy asked the DM while we were in the fairy realm. He's like, "Do I have my spear and my armor with me?" And you know, because Ziggy was like contemplating his options here instead of sacrificing body parts. He's like, the DM looks at him. He's like, "I guess you do, but it doesn't matter. It won't help." And it's like, what the fuck? Why would you say this? That was sort of the point where it's like, I don't know. Maybe this guy is a shitty DM. You would never say that. You would never say that. Ugh. The other thing is, like, everything that happened is pretty much exactly what we wanted to happen. The goal of the session, as far as we are aware, was to bring back Brian Boru to his former glory and reclaim Ireland. That's exactly what happened. We won. We won. So doing anything differently could have led to us not winning. It could have been potentially way more exciting and interesting, but we won. So I don't know. It was pretty much a train wreck. None of us were happy with it. We laughed and complained and joked about it the whole ride home. And that was that. I'll wrap up here since we're over time, but that night after the one shot, the 8 of us got together at the hotel and we played Unusual Suspects together for like 45 minutes. That was the only time we all played a game together. And that was pretty fun. So there was that. Finally, then Saturday, yesterday, T-Bell again for breakfast. Gen Con is like the most unhealthy weekend of the year, so I'm kind of okay with it being done. I didn't even eat at a food truck that day. Actually, I didn't eat at a food truck for 2 days. I only ate at a food truck once because the lines were just so atrocious. We went out there and we just went back in because it was just ridiculous. And we just decided T-Bell and waiting to go to the restaurant at night were fine. Saturday, I think we did some. Oh, I bought Keyforge Saturday afternoon. I could have just bought on Amazon, but I was like, I'm here. Keyforge is here. I wanted to buy it last year. Fuck it, I'll just buy it. I bought the starter set. Studs and I played a game. It seems pretty interesting. I want to play some more of it. Then Thomas and I were the only one to get into a second escape room. We all tried, but only Thomas and I got in. So the two of us went over and did another escape room with like 6 or 8 strangers or something like that. And this one was far more thematic. It was the most thematic escape room I've ever done. It was like a fantasy dungeon, dragon's lair type thing. It had like animatronics. It had actors involved. We went through a series of 4 different rooms. It was super thematic, but they had like 3, like when you were in like the second room of the 4 different rooms, there was another group in the first room behind you and another group in the third room ahead of you. So they were continually like funneling people through here to get as much money as possible. And so that meant if you were taking too long, they were really like guiding you as much as possible just to get you to keep moving along. That's really obnoxious and should never happen. For all the effort you put into making this as thematic as possible, I know you're trying to recoup your money and make it worth it, but goddamn. So thematically, it was awesome. They had some really cool, like, innovative stuff, but it was the easiest escape room I've ever been in by far. Because everything was dead simple, and they told you the answers, basically, if you were stuck even for a few minutes. So, that was a bummer. I mean, if you had combined both escape rooms, it probably would have been interesting to have like really thematic and difficult. That would have been nice, but either one was not great. But then we discovered that escape room was in the JW Marriott Hotel near the convention center, which is a really nice hotel. And they have one of their grand ballrooms completely open like every day for 21 hours per day for just open gaming. And it's way better than the convention center. And they have like 5 restaurants in the hotel. They have like water filling stations all over the place. They have very nice bathrooms. They have this like vending area where you can just buy all sorts of snacks and drinks and stuff. It was just way better. I don't know why we didn't go here for gaming until the last day. But Studs came over to the Marriott then, and we played another game of Cloudspire. Everyone else had basically left Gen Con by this point. We wanted to finish this game of Cloudspire. We finally did at like 7:30 or some shit. Such a lengthy game. But I ended up winning, so I was pretty happy. We were going to go to our usual restaurant for the 4th and final time that trip. But by the time we got there, it was packed to the hilt. We couldn't find a seat, so we left. We left Indy. We stopped in this small little Indiana town that had a really highly rated brew pub. Great food, and they had this like apple peach cider, this hard cider that was freaking amazing. It was like the best alcoholic thing I've tasted. And so I drank some snifters of that and took some Dramamine for motion sickness. And those things combined basically act as a sedative. And so when I got back in the car, I was basically out until I got home. So that was pretty nice. And that was Gen Con 2019. So Ziggy's wife loved it. You know, she did all sorts of like these crafting events where she made like bracelets and tiaras and stuff like that. 'Cause she really likes that. So she loved it. Even though she's not really a gamer. So I will say that Gen Con is not only if you are a bored gamer or anything like that. There is a shit ton of stuff to do at Gen Con if you like different things. So take a look, especially if you just go for like 1 year. The first year is generally really awesome. It's just our small group are a bunch of cynical bastards and really just grew disillusioned with it after a few years. But the first year that we went, was really awesome. She loved her first year. Phil's friends loved their first year. So I'd take a look. But for, our little group, we are definitely glad and okay with it being done and being our last year. Because the cabin trip where we go up to a cabin for 4 days and just game the whole time, that's way better. So we're looking forward to that. But that's that. I mean, I got to meet a fan, I guess. I wish it had been under better circumstances. But it kind of makes you wonder, like, he only realized who I was because they were talking to him about like Cthulhu stuff and about videos, and they mentioned my series. So it kind of makes you wonder, like, how many other fans were at Gen Con. Probably a good handful. But anyways, that'll do us. So check out the Lord Blackwood tale tomorrow. It's a shorter one. We've got the final part of Wolfenstein Youngblood tonight. Probably starting that Bloodstained game this week. Some more Final Fantasy Tactics. And that'll do us. So, my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. I'll see you fine folks next week.